bring our panel members onto the screen or the virtual stage as well. So we have Hector and Minto from Microsoft. So Hector, would you like to just say who you are and where you come from and what your job is?
Hi, everyone. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Bella. Yeah, my name is Hector Minto. I'm the lead accessibility evangelist for Microsoft. We run a program called GCAP, our global commercial accessibility program, where we're driving customer conversations around the world around digital accessibility. I also have the privilege of being the current UK government ambassador for the tech sector for disability and accessibility. So maybe that'll come into the conversation maybe a bit later on, Bella, about how we're trying to spread the word around this.
Thank you, Hector. Yes, indeed. And then we've got Chris Patno, who's joining us, I believe, from sunny California.
Yes, hello, my name is Christopher. I have the Golden Gate Bridge behind me to remind myself where I actually am. It's a little confusing. I'm based in London, where I'm the head of accessibility and disability inclusion for Google. And my responsibility is to try to understand the expectations and needs of the community across Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, to bring it inside to Google so we can learn how to make our products, platforms, and services better, to create tools and things that can potentially change people's lives, and then listen to them while we do this so we can make it better in the future.
Thank you, Christopher. Thank you so much. Are you Christopher or Chris?
Well, I call myself Christopher, but I'll answer anything.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. And we also have Lauren, who's joining us also from the west coast of the United States, I believe. Lauren.
I'm on the East Coast. I'm right outside of Washington, D.C. But hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Labrano, and I am the head of global disability inclusion for Amazon. I sit within our DEI team, which we call Inclusive Experiences in Technology. And essentially, my remit is to work cross-organizationally to build stronger disability inclusion, not just for our employees, but for our customers and our vendors and others. So thank you for being here. I wish I was in sunny California, but I will take gray DC.
Oh well, you're in DC, still wonderful. So thank you everyone for joining us. So we will take questions on Slido as well, but I have a few questions myself. So that was a really positive use of AI there, Sally. But I think the summit that's happening at the moment at Bletchley Park, it's called Safety. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of people have quite a few fears around AI. So are there any more positive examples of AI? Is there more AI for good? Does anyone want to come in on that? So, okay, Christopher, guess.
You too.
I think what we need to realize is that what we're going through now is just the next generation of AI. AI in accessibility specifically has been around for a very long time. I mean, at Google and YouTube in 2009, we were experimenting with our first automatic speech recognition, or ASR technologies. And now we have 14 different languages that we support in YouTube. We have 25 plus languages for Google Meets. These technologies evolve over time, and they have to evolve over time because the technology evolves, the people's needs evolve, the expectations and the laws evolve. So as these things change around us, the technology has to evolve. So there's nothing inherently bad or scary about AI. I think we just need to realize that we're in this new transition where these large language models are sort of shaking up the industry in really interesting ways, in the same way that digital computing shook up desktop publishing. I think this is really the closest metaphor to what's happening now, but this is happening at a global scale with a massive number of people talking about this all at the same time, more or less with a complete understanding of how the technology works. So you can create a lot of excitement, but you can also create a lot of fear without really understanding the details of each.
I mean, I think one of that's really interesting. And I know, I mean, this morning there was something around how AI is being used to better diagnose cancers, rare cancers and tumors, and there are these positives. However, sort of full disclosure here, I am an employment lawyer, I am a discrimination lawyer. And before you say I'm just worried about losing my own job, what about losing jobs? And we heard in the earlier session on recruitment about wonderful initiatives to hire disabled people in contact centers and in all sorts of businesses, training AI, in fact. is there a risk that those disabled people, that a lot of us will lose our jobs because AI will do it more effectively? And what about the person we have at the bottom right hand of our screens today, who's an actual person who's signing this conference? Is there a risk that those jobs will go? I think Hector, you probably want to come in on that.
Yeah. Very happy to. I mean, just quickly on sign language interpreter. I mean, Sally mentioned it earlier. We simply don't have enough people in the world to provide the level of sign language required in society, and this is why people, since time began, have looked to technology to help scale delivery. And you know, we've never been at a time of human history where there's been more people in employment. The jobs have changed. I mean, the job I'm in didn't exist 7 years ago, let alone 50 years ago. The future jobs, every school teacher worth their salt is telling kids, don't lock in on one career route, because you don't know what the jobs are going to be in 20 years time. So the only thing we can say with any kind of certainty is that technology has driven employment for people around the world. What we cannot say right now is it's driven equitable delivery of jobs for people around the world, and maybe that's the next phase that we need to start looking at. So the role that technology plays in supporting people increasingly in all manner of jobs, from construction to catering to cleaning to frontline worker roles, as well as some of those traditional office admin jobs, legal roles, etc. Believe it or not, once upon a time, lawyers never touched computers, Bella. I mean, heaven forbid. But essentially, the jobs are changing. The incumbent pressure on us as organizations, frankly, rather than just kind of the technology and the job impact, is the skilling challenge, to make sure that people with disabilities are getting the skills required to work in the evolving and emerging job roles that are going to be there in society. One thing human beings will always do is keep themselves busy and find work. Okay, and well, that's what we've got to do. But of course, there's going to be a changing environment, and we've got to make sure, as disability confident organizations invested in this topic, that we're the ones sharing what the impacts might be.
I see, Lauren, you're nodding, and there's a question coming in on Slido. So what are businesses doing? And we've got some tech giants here, and I think Amazon, you could call yourself a tech giant, but you're also a retailer and a product developer as well. So what are businesses doing to understand, measure, and where required, manage the impact of tech, which is evolving faster than somebody said that we can possibly understand? Is that?
Well, so I think for us as a retailer, as a product developer, owning multiple lines of business, first of all, I will tell you, one of our principles is we're customer obsessed. So we're constantly using what is it that our customer wants and how do we work backwards from that? And that means looking around the corner. It means listening to them and iterating off of those ideas and pulling those threads. And I think we see a lot of examples of how we use AI, and I can share a couple from Amazon. I hope I disengaged her, but Alexa, I did not. Alexa is one of those AI generative models that we've seen that both we use every single day, and a lot of our companies have these models. But it's a tool that I see as both empowering people to be more engaged, but also to be more independent. And we have examples of how we've had people with disabilities run their daily lives using these AI personal assistants, and how it's getting stronger and stronger the more we collectively use it. And I think what's incumbent upon us, and one of the ways that we like to address this, is we like to engage and use people with disabilities as part of our design model. And this means we're constantly using them to iterate and to see around the corner. What are we worried about? What is dangerous? So that we're not trying to decide for other people, but building that diversity, building that disability inclusion into our employee base. And this way, we're not just building products for people with disabilities, we're building them with people with disabilities, and that keeps us accountable. The best way that we can be accountable is when we employ the people who are going to do that. It's part of our leadership principle. We like to say that success and scale brings broad responsibility, and we're going to take that seriously by employing the people who are going to do that.
Yeah, and I think that's we're talking about partnership today. So involving people with disabilities, absolutely employing people with disabilities, And yeah, I hope everyone has turned their Alexas off, because and I can attest to my father-in-law, who has dementia, but uses Alexa to play songs from the 1940s and the 1950s that we don't know. But Christopher, I saw your hand going up.
Yeah, to Lauren's point, I think we also need to realize that the technology we have today is imperfect. And there's huge opportunities for us as tech giants to even collaborate together on ways to make things more useful, more impactful. Take a look at the Accessible Speech Project that the three of us have collaborated on to create voice models that are more inclusive of people with non-typical speech patterns. So even when we have the technology, there's still work to be done to make it useful by everybody, and that just will continue to evolve over time.
And I think one of the things, it's in the news a lot. I mean, the Collins English Dictionary said today that AI is the word of the year. It was a toss-up between, I think, AI and Nepo baby. So those were those, and influencer.
Not stone tablets. Gosh.
No, indeed, not stone tablets. So is this all very new, or is it just accelerated? Has this been sort of around for a while? Technology obviously has been around for a very long time, since the first person sort of got a flint. But you know, is this new? Faster than we can understand? Somebody want to come in on that? I can see Hector.
Yeah,
really.
I think it is. I think it is definitely. I mean, I looked at where things were. I was really interested in this about 20 years ago, but there was a research project between the Post Office, I don't know if anyone remembers this, the Post Office and East Anglia University, because the Post Office wanted to communicate with their deaf customers who wanted to buy stamps, and you know, it was motion capture, and the end result was just awful. Like, I'm a big fan of the adjacent rooms theory. It's like, why did Clive Sinclair with his Sinclair C5 and Tesla, why did Clive Sinclair not take off and make a success of the Sinclair C5? Because the technology just was not ready for that. There was a lot of work that needed to be doing. They had to make batteries. They had to make batteries light enough. They had to make, you know, frames light enough. They had to make the electronics work. There was too many rooms to get to before you could get to a Tesla. And it's exactly the same with the space I'm in. It's just the technology, the compute space needed, the compute power, the brain power, everything just I mean, the concept of large language models didn't exist 20 years ago. I don't think so. I might be wrong, but it's like you had to go through a series of steps to get to where we are now. So is it new? Yes, I'd say definitely. We're living in unprecedented times, and I'm finding them pretty exciting, really. That's just my two penneth worth on, really.
Yeah. Go on then, Hector. Yes, absolutely exciting. But...
Look, I mean, let me say two things. Specifically for this audience, people with disabilities drove language models. Okay, we were using them in word prediction engines long before there were tablet computers. We were using them to support people with physical disabilities and speech disabilities in order to communicate. I was working with people in MS-DOS with word prediction. So we've been building intelligent systems for some time, but as you say, the compute power is now there, and we've reached a mainstream moment where suddenly everyone started playing with ChatGPT and went, oh, this is useful, and I could use this. You know, there was this mainstream moment, which then allowed the mainstream to catch up. So first point, people with disabilities have always been at the cutting edge of using the latest technologies to problem solve around where they're excluded from experiences. The mainstream moment that's coming, though, the companies who've already been using AI and cognitive services and gone through cloud transformation in terms of their businesses, they're going to be the ones that are most ready to apply this next generation of technologies to what they're doing. And I think the challenge for us in the accessibility space, and I know Krista and I agree on this, Laura, we've only met today, but I'm absolutely sure you will, is up till now, technology companies have looked at accessibility as being a deliverable. That's something we do. We've all been in this game for some time, but now we're increasingly seeing more industries start to recognize their responsibilities in the technology they build. So we've had website accessibility laws for years and have without the results that we need. What we're now seeing is AI is coming, and there's the opportunity to refresh the conversation, that the lift is going to be much lighter for businesses to start building inclusive, voice-driven, voice-speaking, all sorts of technologies they're going to be able to apply to the experiences they build. What's going to be incumbent upon us as a tech sector, and for you as disability advocates in enterprise, in employing people with disabilities, is to recognize that lived experiences of the people you have need to start influencing the digital experiences we build out there in society. That's the next. To me, that's the next phase of accessibility, is this pivot towards an industry focus, not a tech focus.
Yeah, I mean, I would sort of say, I'm going to be devil's advocate here, because that's my job, is you would say that, wouldn't you? And there have been some real issues with the people who have some fears about AI and technology. There was a time, I mean, I don't want to pick on you as Microsoft, but did Microsoft put out a chatbot a while back that they let loose on the internet and then had to take down within a very short space of time because it became quite abusive and racist and tried to sell drugs or something.
And
pornography.
The same as any social media platform known to humankind. So there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of awful data that feeds in, and so this is where we're going to need to start making sure that there are regulations, that there are guidelines, that companies are building the products or allowing their platforms to be used for the things that they want to allow their platforms to be used for. And across the tech sector, what we're seeing is the cloud providers start to put in frameworks around AI regulation in partnership with governments. The whole reason that the UK government is meeting today and holding its summit today, and the US government signed off its AI regulations yesterday, is because they recognize this. The data that goes in will drive the experiences. When ChatGPT first came out and you said, you used the chat and you said, I'm a person with a disability, or I'm blind and I want to be able to do this. Can you help me? Can you help me? It would start with, I'm sorry, you're blind. Well, when have you ever apologized? When does anybody ever apologize to somebody for being blind? But the AI has that, it's somehow learned that and is starting to deliver those messages. We, in the products that we build, need to design out that bias, and that's where we're going to need partnership across communities and for people to hold a torch to what we're building. I really genuinely, sorry, go.
Well, I just want to jump in here, and I'm gonna defend my partner in Microsoft and say that part of doing new things means that we are going to make some mistakes. And what's really incumbent upon us is to be quick to address those and pull down software that's damaging, because that's not our intent, right? We're in this to build products and services for customers, right? We want to build inclusion. We're always looking around that corner, and that means that sometimes we are going to take a misstep. And the thing that we have to keep in mind as these tech giants is to be very intentional and understand that line and be ready to stop quickly, because that's how innovation works. We are, and I'm not saying that we're willing to go loosey-goosey if we know that something's wrong. If we know that something's wrong, it's our responsibility. And I think all four of us adhere to that responsibility to not do that. But sometimes we discover things through iteration, or a bad actor gets hold of something and does something. So I just want to acknowledge that when things are moving quickly, we do have to be very responsible. And I think you see that across the tech giants here.
And I think that's so important. And I think one of the things that is quite interesting, and the question that we've got that I had, but it's also come through on the Slido, and maybe I can come to you, Christopher, on this, is how do you ensure, how does every business ensure that bias and discrimination isn't sort of baked in to the technology, because it's being created by people who possibly inadvertently build that into the systems, or because as it picks it up, because it is generative large language model, it's learning from what's already out there. and that it doesn't pick up the worst of what's out there on social media, as Hector said. So what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
There's two parts of it. There's the part when you design something completely as thoughtfully as you can. There's no such thing as anything being perfectly accessible. I think it's safe to say we can't say there will be anything that is completely unbiased, because so much of bias has to do with culture. So understanding the complex nature of the world, we need to realize that biases will sometimes slip in. But to Lauren's point, it is our expectation that we go and proactively pen test our biases in our models to make sure that they behave as we would want them to, and also then react thoughtfully and transparently as we can when something goes wrong. I mean, there was the microaggression of "I'm sorry, you're blind." This matters. But also, if you think about like Jutta Dravenius's work with autonomous vehicles 10 years ago, when the person was pushing the wheelchair so it looks like they're going backwards, they got hit by the autonomous vehicle AI. I mean, both of these matter. Hopefully, the company that would be using that technology would fix it. But in Jutta's perspective, when she came back 5 years later, they hadn't fixed it. So again, this is many years ago. I'm quite sure these things will be finished today. And if you look at the Waymos and Cruises, I'm sure they have this right. But Jutta had a really interesting message in M-Enabling a couple of weeks ago, is that to the point of what you're talking about of fear, we need to progress at the speed of trust, which means we can't go too fast. People have to understand where and how these things come together. They need to be part of the process. And this is that whole shift left, build accessibly. We want to shift left and build inclusively, because nothing about us without us is not just for the people with disabilities. It's also nothing about us without us for those of us who are making the technology. We have to do these things together in concert, or else we won't get the progress, and we won't get the progress that we want. So the fear comes from a lack of understanding of why these things are happening the way they are. What we, as the companies that are using and building these AIs, we take the fear and try to understand it. We take the experience and try to incorporate it. We take the algorithms and have them be representative of the things that matter to us. We tune, we boost, we do the things we have to create a product that is as inclusive as we can be, realizing we're still going to fail. Then we need to learn and how to react to that in a thoughtful and transparent way.
I think that's really interesting. I think the word that you used there, this trust, I think that's really important, because what I'm reading a lot about is it's all very exciting. It's all very, futuristic, but also people have some real trust issues. And they have trust issues, and just being honest here, trust issues with big tech as well on there. So I know that both Amazon and Microsoft, you've both won a Business Disability Forum Disability Smart Award in recent years as well. So what I want to ask really is why? Why do you care? Why does it matter to you that there is inclusion, accessibility, inclusion of disabled people, but also of all sorts of people? I mean, provocative question. But did you want to come in there first, Lauren, and then I'll come to the two.
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier. We are customer obsessed, and we know that we're going to do our best when our employee base reflects our customer base. So that's a big part of it. We actually just celebrated 10 years of accessibility built into our devices and services. And again, I'm going to repeat something that I said earlier. We don't make products for people with disabilities. We make products with people with disabilities. So they are integrated, they are ingrained. As much as we possibly can, we hire people with disabilities to help build our accessibility feature. We also are very collaborative with external organizations such as BDF. And I think this is one of the reasons that we're recognized, is because when you're building, the saying of nothing about us without us, well, I don't want to just do that. I don't want to just invite people to the dance. I want them to be on the planning committee for the dance, right? I want them to be out on the dance floor. I want them to be eating and drinking with everybody else. And so when we're very intentional about that, I think what happens is you also see the curb cut effect start to rise. So for example, closed captionings, right? We know that younger generations love closed captionings. There was just a report that came out earlier this week about how many millennials and whatever comes after them, I'm XZ is using them to better absorb information, and that may be recognition of adoption of these from an early age. But that's important to us. And again, I think it also goes back to, because we are a consumer organization, so we want to do right by our customers. We're not in this to destroy our customer base. When we aren't engaging them and providing services that they want to use, that's why we exist, is to serve them. So I think that comes back to us every day in our leadership principles, again, and how we are trying to ensure that we have that broad responsibility that comes with scaling quickly and broadly. So that's a big part of it. And by the way, we're still just chuffed. I will use a UK word. We're chuffed over here to have won that award. I get to look at it every day. So thank you for that recognition.
Absolutely. So, well, it was well deserved there. So, we're going to come to Hector. Microsoft is doing quite a lot in this space, and you're the evangelist for accessibility. Why?
So Microsoft's been doing accessibility since back in the 90s. Since we first put sticky keys into Windows. But fundamentally, there is a disability divide out there in society, whether we're thinking about education, employment, healthcare outcomes. We know that there's a baked-in disability divide in society, and we think we have a role to play as society digitally transforms. So, technology is, the electricity that sits around us at every part of our daily life is increasingly digital. We've got to take our learnings as a disability confident organization employing disability talent to influence the products that we build. And we have to essentially help our partners around the world also sort of fast forward their journey, their learning journey, so that we can start to see a more increasingly equitable, accessible society. And I don't think it's just across accessibility. This would include connectivity, language, literacy. There are many people in society who are having inferior outcomes when they interface with technology. You've only got to go into any organization and ask them about their own digital transformation, and they'll tell you it's slowed down by people who cannot access their digital offer that they're transforming into. So we've been at this longer, I would say, than many organizations. I think the banks have also been in this for some time. The financial institutions have been in it for some time. When we start moving towards the retailers, the healthcare organizations, the education authorities, we've got to support those organizations with their own journey on both disability inclusion and accessibility as a deliverable. So it's fundamental to how we believe good technology should be delivered. It's quality technology is accessible. Yeah, I mean, that's the table stakes. I mean, as we launch Copilot across the world today, people are going to start seeing more AI in their products, but fundamentally they'll also be turning around to us and saying, is it accessible? Not just what can it do, but is it structurally accessible is something we absolutely have to hang on to here as well. So it's in our DNA. It has been since the very early days. Microsoft products have been used by people with disabilities in all scenarios for years, but we're seeing a democratization of that technology now. We're scaling out, and now's the time to absolutely get more people to the table and serious about this topic.
And Sally, did you want to come in there? So
I'm just going to ask Hector if his paperclip was an accessibility function or not. I remember the Microsoft paperclip.
I mean, like, the Copilot is increasingly feeling clippy-ish.
For those of you who are too young to remember that, there used to be a, depending on your point of view, helpful or really annoying paperclip that tried to give you a tip.
Bella, you're so negative today. When was clipping not useful? Like, what are you talking about?
I'm not negative. I'm going to come to Chris.
It looks like you're trying to write a letter.
Yeah, sort of helpful clip. Are you trying to write a letter? I'm just going to come back to Chris, and it's a question that's come through on Slido as well. But going back to the why, are you in this because you're competing with Microsoft as well on this? Why is it important to Google? the accessibility inclusion agenda.
Sure. I love competing with Hector anyway, but that's not why we do this. I'm lucky that for Google, accessibility is part of our mission statement, to make the world's information universally accessible. Now, we all know the word accessible has multiple meanings, but if you add the word universal to accessible, then it really clearly, definitively includes people with disabilities, but it also includes people outside of the US, outside of the UK. And that's what's really fascinating for me in my role, is really understanding how accessible can we make the technology in sub-Saharan Africa, in the Middle East, because the cultural, infrastructural, there's so many things that we take for granted and here in the Western world that just don't exist or don't exist in the same way. So this is where the accessible really becomes a very broad concept. So yes, we expect everything that we build to be accessible for people with disabilities, but I want to sort of take this one step farther, because it really does matter, because it is a big world and we all are intersectional in terms of who we are, where we are, when we are, what we believe in, who we love. These things all matter in terms of who we want to be represented in technology, in who we want to be as people. And right now, there's a lot of really bad things happening. And if we focus ourselves in the things that we can control, and we focus ourselves on building things that are inclusive, whether it's a disability, whether it's a cultural thing, or whether it's a technological thing, we get to create that world that we want to see. And we need a little bit of hope and optimism right now. So why do we build our technology to be inclusive? Is because this is the world that we want to live in. Why do we build the technology to be inclusive? Because this is the technology that we want to use. Something that is really inclusive is a delight to use, no matter who you are, where you are, or when you are, because it has the contrast if you happen to be in England, in California for a sunny day, but it also happens to work well with low bandwidth if you happen to be in Mombasa. So taking these technologies and taking it to the extremes, Rama Giraro at the RCA said, at the Hamlet Center says, if you design for the edges, you get the center for free. I think we get a better center and middle for free when you design at the edges, because you think of all of those edge cases and life hacks that need to be incorporated. That's the product that we want to build. We don't do this to compete with Hector. We do this because this is the technology we want to have. And the competition between Amazon and Microsoft and Apple and Google helps the technology advance faster. Because only when you have that competition do you really start saying, maybe we were a bit too cautious. Let's drive faster, but with trust and transparency to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community around us. But the competition is good because it puts all of us in our A game, but all of our A game is sort of like an E game, meaning everyone has to be part of the process.
Bella, can I just build on something Christopher just said, though? So the other thing is, like, we've got Sally here on the call, who's built a brilliant bit of technology. Yeah, what we are also is we're the platform providers for innovation, and so the influence we have in terms of the next generation of startups that are going to build the next generation of assistive technologies. It'd be ridiculous to think that all of these things are going to come from the big tech players. They're going to come from people out there. And as Chris says, from different parts of the world, building their own routine assistive technologies that they want to see in their regions. The more that we are here talking at a global, event, talking, people shouldn't just see us as the people behind the Alexa or the Pixel or Microsoft Office. They should see us as the platforms. And as we work with our tech partners around the world, what we're hoping to do is start to ingest some of this responsible AI, accessible technology. These are values that these businesses have that they want to influence their wider stakeholder map on. And to me, that's the direction of travel here. Shining a torch just to the people who provide the technology that's in our pocket every day, or the one that we use at work, is not the game. The game is going to be that people are going to be building their own AI models on our platforms to deliver experiences into society. So the challenge here is huge. And this is why, as advocates, we need you out there saying to governments, what about accessibility? What about disability exclusion in these experiences? We won't be the ones that catch everything. It will be across society that people with disabilities will understand when things work for them and when things don't. And they need to feel that there's a channel back into the tech companies to ask, why is this excluding me. And I think that's why I would kind of take my hat off to my colleagues from across big tech here, because I really feel that we're all on the same page here.
I think that's, yeah, and I think Christopher, thank you, Hector, and Christopher, you said something really great when you said if you design for the edges, you get the center and the middle for free. And I think that's a really good quote. And I think there's a question that's come through on the Slido as well, and it touches on what you were alluding to there, Hector, which is, what can you do? Can you help all of you in this room to help your suppliers, the businesses who use your products or that you work with, or who are in Sally, in your case, who are your clients, to become more accessible, more inclusive, and to use and generate a more accessible and inclusive AI as well? And maybe Sally, you know, you're working with some big players from Cincinnati Airport, Cincinnati rail station to JFK to, you know, the rail companies here. Do you think you've got a role there as well in helping them to be more inclusive and accessible?
Yeah, I think having worked across a number of clients, I think one thing that really works is simplicity. We've found that when projects have involved multiple stakeholders, sometimes external to the company, that they've fallen over. And when people have sort of talked about, like, visions are great, like everyone wants a Harry Potter interpreter that's a you can't see my hand, where's my hand? Everyone wants like a Harry Potter interpreter on your hands. So we had a client go like, can you put it on our buses, and can we use the cameras to have your interpretation? We were like, no, that's not going to work. Those ones it has worked for is when the use case has been really simple, and when they've said, look, let's just get this up and running. It might not be perfect, it's not going to be like an avatar, but it's going to be you know, it's going to be there, and it's going to be providing access. So in terms of what we can do to help, you know, we've learned that already in 12-18 months. It's like, you know, we say yes to those clients that just want to try stuff. They want to try it simply, and they want to try it at speed, really. There's lots of other ways we can help, but I think that's kind of like what we've learned in the last 12 months is like, just get it up and running, and having a champion as well that just drives stuff through. So it's someone that goes like, forget about the avatars, forget about ABBA, forget about Harry Potter, let's just do this. And you get rid of all the noise, you know, like it's having an internal champion with some strength and some sort of enthusiasm and an ability to get people to stop talking about the ABBA avatars and concentrate on, you know, let's get at, you know, our HR policies. We can do your HR policies tomorrow. It's that kind of person is the kind of person that we're looking for when we're looking for clients.
Yeah, and maybe Lauren, you wanted to come in on that, on, you know, using your, I suppose, using your influence, your ability to, and your knowledge for good down the line with the suppliers.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's something that we take into consideration. AWS as a platform is helping our clients use AI regularly, right? Right, Sally? So it's a big part of our mission and our message. And I think those guardrails that we put around the safety, again, and how we develop the product to begin with before we deploy it is a big part of that work. And then ensuring that we're staying on that responsible line and that we are using it for good and being very intentional as we try to push those edges. That's really important to us in our work. But again, you know, things like Signapse and others, X-ray glasses, which we saw at the BDF Awards, and I just adore, and we're using those within Amazon. I mean, these are the things that are really going to transform people's lives. So we want to make sure that we're making this available to them in that responsible way. And we have committed to doing so in a responsible fashion.
Okay. And, you know, we've got a few minutes left and we have a few more time, but I know that you'll all have lots to say on this, so I'm going to ask, what's coming down the line? Do you have a crystal ball? Will you put your sort of little Harry Potter hat on and say, what is going to happen in the future? Who wants to go first on that one? What should we be looking out for? The positives, and also what do we need to regulate for and watch out for? So.
No. what I'd really like is decent Wi-Fi on trains. Once you've got decent Wi-Fi on trains, you can make all sorts of other things happen. That's the kind of like next steps rather than visionary thing. But that's the one thing that constantly frustrates me.
Decent Wi-Fi on trains, excellent. So, what about you?
I think people using and learning with the mainstream experiences around generative AI are going to start developing a whole new set of learning experiences and user experiences. So to give you an example, we've had access to our Copilot for some time, and I asked Office Word the other day, and I said, can you write me instructions on how to wash a pasta cast after a broken arm, but don't use words of more than 2 syllables? And it did it. And I then analyzed the reading age of that document, and it gave me like a 5th grade reading age, which would mean that it was an accessible from a learning concept and in terms of the length of the word used. Now, then you add the learning tools on top of that to give guidance or read aloud and all these sorts of things. And as people start to plug these technologies together, these capabilities together, that concept of literacy coaching or instruction manuals for people at different learning levels, or legal advice at different learning levels, better, we could maybe go down that route. Suddenly there'll be experiences that haven't even been conceived yet, and I don't think they'll all be innovation. I think there'll be application of the new technologies according to the job roles and the kind of the experiences that are out there in society. If you go to Bing now and say, I'm colorblind, how do I use my iPhone? It will give you all the right guidance, which means we're also heightening discovery for people around their assistive technology and their accessibility. So I think what's coming down the track is people are going to start experimenting with these experiences and applying them to those disability situations out there, or some of those those demands of the business that may have been tricky before. That's my hope. I think that's what we're going to start to see first.
Can I ask well, this might be a stupid question from somebody who's not.
Do it. No one's watching. You'll be all right.
No one's watching. How do you ensure that what's been generated by AI now, today, which might not be inclusive and accessible, isn't what's built on in the future? How do you make sure that?
So you keep the human in the loop. Like, these AI systems are not, they're not replacing the need for somebody to check what's created and then verify. And also, one of the things we saw straight away in the kind of the Gen AI space was us adding reference into what was being provided, giving people like, here's where this information's coming from, so go and check where that's coming from and make sure you're happy with that as a reputable source. So the guardrails are being applied, but those questions come from a kind of a position of kind of not having used it yet. And I think once you've used it and you start to see, oh, I can see that this is linking back to this document, and I'll go back and check that document so that I'm verifying the information I've been given, that's going to come over time as people are exposed more to the kind of the actual experiences.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I have used it, actually. I asked it to design a conference
for the
on disability.
Is that how we all ended up here?
Yes. Actually, we didn't mention any of you as the experts I should go to, so I do apologise. Christopher, what's the future hold?
So I'm going to go all futurist on us now. So the technology has evolved over millennia, from stone tablets to papyrus to human calculators to digital calculators to desktop computers to augmented reality and AI. So for me, the future is going to evolve, but something that Hector just mentioned to me, the stacking of technologies is really interesting to me. We're getting to a point now where we can take these technologies and create pipelines, but not just the software, but also engage hardware and new physical experiences on how to build these technologies. So say, Laurel, you talked about the XR glasses, really cool tech. What's really the work that I'm doing with the XR Association is we're trying to understand how can you create a real world screen reader. Yeah. So now imagine glasses with cameras, then uses AI and computer vision and machine learning and hyperlocal understanding of where you are to tell you exactly what's happening in the real world. But how do you do this in a world that is moving for someone who's blind? So these technologies are so fascinating. And XR isn't doing this, so don't ask them if they can do this tomorrow. But just the idea of how these technologies can really allow someone who's blind to go exploring in the world. Yeah. What's this? What am I listening to? Is it safe for me that, well, actually ever use AI to cross the streets. But the idea of exploring instead of having it be a destination, involving yourself in the world, being of the world, not just part of it, being in it. This is what these technologies can really do. And it takes partnership with the community. It takes an understanding and trust of the technology. It takes us being willing to make a mistake and learn from it and be transparent on how this works. So now we have, then we can take AI and AR and create a world where the human babblefish, we can have Signapse's avatar in a glass. We could have captions in a glass. You can have direction tell you where you need to go. All of this is possible once the hardware is there. And that's the exciting part for me. So from stone tablets to AR glasses, the technology just continues to evolve over time.
Chris, can I just one sentence just on that? The only thing I would just be a little bit careful of, and I've noticed it already in things like the Prime Minister's Summit, is we go straight to the most fancy Harry Potter, I think you said, Sally, kind of examples of how AI has lived in the lives of people with disabilities. But just give us accessible documents first.
Yeah.
There's got to be that kind of, let's actually help people out there in society understand what are the table stakes that people with disabilities are demanding, as well as moving towards the next generation of quite amazing experiences. That's the only thing I would add.
I think that's a great point, because I, for one, am just looking forward to the day when I can understand my IKEA furniture instructions, and I think AI can help with that, as you mentioned, Hector. But I do see AI. You mentioned enabling, Christopher, and I was at a dinner with some of my colleagues one night. And you all probably know Peter Korn, and he is just a fantastic, fabulous photographer. And he was showing us some of his underwater photos, and we used AI to describe these to one of our colleagues who was blind, and the descriptions were just as beautiful as the photo. So when you're sitting around, it's those simple experiences that I think we sometimes overlook when you're sitting at a table together and you're having a meal and you're talking about life outside of work and getting to know each other. And then all of a sudden it is a fully inclusive experience. But it was also a learning opportunity for me, because AI is describing this fish in a way that I might not even think about. So I think that there's beauty in that. And an example, I used this earlier, and I think it's good today. A friend, an acquaintance, had a problem with his apartment management, and we all know about the disability tax and the time that it takes when you're already dealing with other barriers that we face. And he just used AI to help him write the letter to his community management. And I think that's a beautiful use of this process that's every day. So when we talk about how, we move this from the tech giants and how we're designing our warehouses to an everyday individual with cerebral palsy who is now using this to engage on a problem that he's facing that he just is kind of frustrated and exhausted about already, that just lowers the amount of energy he has to spend into it. And that's the future that I'm really excited about. Again, I think, I know all of us here are engaged in this. I think the future also just relies on us to continue to hire those people with disabilities, to help see around the corner and make sure that we're designing.
Absolutely. And I think it's just been such a fascinating conversation today, and so timely. And I think, Lauren, you've ended it there on, yes, focus on the people, and the people, keep it simple, elegant solutions and technology that has ever been evolving, as you've all been saying. I think it was from stone tablets to futuristic glasses, Christopher, that you were talking about. But right now, let's concentrate on inclusion, accessibility, and the work that I think has been showcased that you've been doing today has been quite inspiring. So I hope people have enjoyed it. And it just leaves me to say a very big thank you to all of you, to Lauren, to Hector, to Christopher, and of course to Sally for that really fascinating presentation that you gave earlier. Thank you, everyone, so much.